Murray Mexted warned Scott Robertson against copying Springboks bomb squad blueprint. Former All Blacks loose forward Murray Mexted believes Scott Robertson does not need to replicate South Africa's famed bomb squad approach to restore New Zealand's dominance, warning that blindly copying Springboks tactics risks undermining the All Blacks' identity, credibility, and long-term consistency. Speaking on the DSBN podcast with Martin Devlin, the outspoken rugby analyst argued that New Zealand's rugby environment is fundamentally different from South Africa's, and that attempts to mirror Rassie Erasmus selection philosophy and heavy bench usage during the 2025 test season have come at a cost. Mexted's criticism comes after a turbulent year for the All Blacks, which included an alarming home defeat to the Springboks in Wellington, the heaviest loss New Zealand have ever suffered on home soil against their greatest rivals. While acknowledging Erasmus' success with squad rotation and bench impact, Mexted insists Robertson should resist the temptation to follow the same path. Are we selecting or are we still trialing? One of Mexted's strongest critiques centers on what he perceives as a lack of selection stability throughout the 2025 international campaign. He questioned whether the All Blacks were genuinely selecting their best team or continuing to experiment at test level. Are we selecting or are we still trialing players? Mexted asked, I'd like to see a more stable selection process. There are a lot of guys who seem to be given matches. Robertson used a large playing group during the season, rotating combinations and frequently changing personnel, a strategy that mirrored trends seen in South Africa and England. However, Mexted believes that approach does not suit New Zealand's smaller talent pool or rugby culture. He was particularly critical of substitution patterns, suggesting they had become predictable and driven more by conditioning protocols than on-field performance. Strength and conditioning coaches have a lot to answer to in my mind, he said. There seems to be a bit of a pattern that if you played 45 minutes of a game, it's time to move on to a replacement. It just seems automatic. According to Mexted, that rigidity has led to high-performing players being removed from matches prematurely. Not because they were struggling, but because rotation plans demanded it. Bomb squad. Psychological warfare. Not a template the Springboks bomb squad, a forward-heavy bench designed to overwhelm opponents late in matches, has become one of the most influential tactical developments in modern rugby. Under Erasmus, South Africa used an extraordinary 49 players across the season while maintaining cohesion and success. Mexted accepts that Erasmus methods have been effective, but he disputes the notion that they should be universally adopted. I know Rassie Erasmus has used that pattern for psychological warfare, he said. Bringing on 8 players in one hit, 5 new forwards, all about the same size and ability, that's psychological. However, Mexted stressed that what worked for South Africa does not automatically translate to New Zealand. What I see is players being replaced that shouldn't be replaced, he continued. Players who are really performing well and all of a sudden are off because they feel like they have to give someone else a game. For Mexted, this approach risks eroding the All Blacks' greatest historical strength. Ruthless consistency, reputation, and the cost of constant change beyond tactics. Mexted fears that excessive rotation has damaged the All Blacks' standing in the global game. New Zealand, long regarded as rugby's gold standard, now face increased scrutiny and criticism, something Mexted believes is self-inflicted. I think that's flirting with our reputation and our record, he said. I'd like to see our credibility in the world game restored, where we quieten down the media every time we play. He argued that the All Blacks' aura was built not just on athleticism or skill, but on an unshakable winning mentality, something he feels has been diluted by overemphasis on fitness metrics and player management. That winning mantra is a psychological thing, Mexted explained. I think there's too much focus on fitness and conditioning than there is on mental strength. For him, consistent selection breeds confidence, trust, and mental resilience. Qualities that no rotation policy can replace. Trial matches at test level. Mexted was particularly frustrated by what he viewed as experimental selections in meaningful tests, citing matches where players were handed caps despite uncertain futures in New Zealand rugby. Nada. We'll give you a game because you're not going to be here next year, he said. You're off to play pro rugby, so we'll give you the final game of the All Black Tour. He referenced New Zealand's disappointing performance against Wales, where the visitors scored 4 tries, as an example of where selection decisions backfired. That was disappointing, Mexted said bluntly. South Africa and New Zealand. Fundamentally different systems. Central to Mexted's argument is the belief that South Africa and New Zealand operate in vastly different rugby ecosystems. You've got to maneuver within your own environment, he said. The environment in South Africa and the requirements of creating a team environment, they're totally different to what we're doing in New Zealand. South Africa's depth is spread across domestic competitions and overseas clubs, allowing Erasmus to rotate heavily while maintaining performance standards. New Zealand, by contrast, relies on a smaller, domestically based player pool. We've got a small number of players in New Zealand, Mexted explained. They need to be playing at the highest level they possibly can play, so we can sort out the men from the boys. For that reason, he believes the focus should be on identifying a core group, backing them consistently, and allowing combinations to mature. Protecting the foundations of New Zealand rugby. Mexted also stressed the importance of safeguarding the domestic game, particularly Super Rugby and the NPC, which he views as the lifeblood of the All Blacks. The most important thing for New Zealand is to retain the level of the NPC and Super Rugby. He said that in his view, sustainable success will not come from copying overseas models, but from reinforcing the pathways that have historically produced elite All Blacks. A clear warning to Robertson. While Mexted acknowledged Scott Robertson's intelligence and rugby acumen, his message was unmistakably clear. Innovation should not come at the expense of identity. There may be multiple paths to success in modern rugby, but for New Zealand, Mexted believes the answer lies in consistency, mental toughness, and trusting proven performers, not in chasing trends set elsewhere. The All Blacks build toward the 2027 Rugby World Cup. The challenge for Robertson will be deciding how much to evolve and how much to remain true to what made New Zealand rugby feared for more than a century. According to Mexted, that balance has yet to be found.